Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with career coaching for creative professionals, Tony Leonard. He works mainly with creative professionals and has 13 plus years helping people with their professional pathways. Creative people of all types often struggle with being valued in the marketplace. Tony specializes in assisting creative professionals through difficult transitions. He uses a holistic approach to coaching that helps with deep listening. Tony's own struggles with mental health have shaped his coaching and made him a more empathetic human being. Enjoy all of this interview.
Hey, thanks for taking a minute out for the show. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, you bet. So before we get into your life of career coaching, I want to know, the last 3 years with COVID did a lot of things to all of us, and I'm wondering how you survived that 3-year pandemic period and how it's changed the way that not only you live your life, but the way that you conduct business now.
The pandemic was rough. It was real hard for me. Struggled with mental health. Fortunately, have an amazing wife and 2 kids and supportive family. And so I was able to get back to a better place. And from a business perspective, I really started my career coaching for creative professionals business right at the beginning of the pandemic, and I had ideas of meeting with people in person and all kinds of wonderful interactions, and then everything went to Zoom, which is a blessing and a curse. One of the amazing things that's come out of that is being able to have a global clientele, being able to work with people in Japan and Mexico and China and Europe. And but of course, I'm working in my home office and it gets lonely at times, and there's the struggle there. But definitely happy to be on the somewhat other side of the COVID era.
So let's get to the root of exactly what you do for a living. If you were to be put in front of a bunch of third graders at a career day, and one of the kids looks up at you and asks you, "What do you do for a living?" how do you answer them?
I help people get jobs. That's kind of the simplest way to capture it. My son's in 2nd grade, and that's what I tell him. That's what I do. Of course, it's more complicated, especially working with creative folks. It's not always about one job. Sometimes it's about multiple revenue streams to support a creative practice. And I also really love working with people who are going through longer and difficult transitions. So they may be in one field or career and they're looking to move into something very different. And people reach out to me often because that new thing involves some type of creativity, and that can be scary and interesting.
So when you were in the 3rd grade, what did you want to be when you grew up?
What did I want to be in the 3rd grade? I probably wanted to be Joe Montana, play quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers. And later on in life, my goal was to be a lawyer and be the one white guy on Martin Luther King's team. So yeah, my career aspirations have gone in many directions.
It's funny, Joe Montana played for the Chiefs for a little while, and I actually saw him play, and it was one of the worst games that he ever played. It was a bad game. The weather was bad, but we were all freaked out. We were like, we're watching this guy that's legendary, but it was fun. It was cool to see him out there and to see it happen. So anyway, I get the Montana link. So let me ask you this. All of us have these beginnings, these seeds that take root, that grow into who we are. Take me back to where you were born and raised and what some of these seeds were that made you who you are. You're definitely in a profession of giving to people and giving a lot of yourself. How did all that happen to become who you are today?
Sure. I was raised in Albany, California, which is right next to Berkeley, also right next to Oakland, where I live now, and Richmond, and the East Bay. The East Bay is the San Francisco Bay Area. My dad was a teacher. My mom was a therapist. So I got a lot of psychological training, educational training from them. I think one of the most impactful moments for me creatively, or that kind of hit me on a creative level, was in the 6th grade, listening to a DJ in our school auditorium play Slick Rick's children's story, and hip hop just completely blew my mind, and it started to help me understand racial dynamics, especially in the Bay Area, and start to care more and get more curious about why certain people lived in one area with limited resources, and other people worked and lived in other areas with lots of resources.
Who's been a role model for you? Who's been kind of a consistent rock in your life that's inspired you to be who you are?
That's a good question. I've had so many role models. I'd say my good friend Alex Gideon, who is now directing opera, new opera. I first saw him play. He was playing rock and roll, kind of funk soul. Saw him at a concert in New York and just blew my mind. That was about 20 years ago, 15 years ago. And he's just an incredible creative role model, and somebody who has been absolutely driven and focused and just in a pure way connected to art and creativity. And I've seen him grow, and he's supported me in my endeavors as a coach and somebody who helps artists and musicians. And he just has an incredible work ethic and focus that is it's just crazy, honestly, for one individual to have that kind of drive, and it's been inspiring for me.
Well, speaking of drive, what is it that motivates you? What's your drive every day when you wake up and you look at what you want to do and how you want to accomplish things? What's that motivation for you?
Is it okay to cuss on this program?
Please do, yeah.
Okay. I really fucking want to help people get paid, especially folks from marginalized communities. And artists really fall into that category for me. I think capitalism makes so little space for art. It's like, from a capitalist perspective, why spend your time playing an instrument for 8 to 10 to 12 to 14 hours a day when you could be producing something to sell? And so I want to create that space for people to really think about and value their work, and then try to have that value reciprocated in the marketplace. And that's what drives me, is just helping people get to some kind of financial stability, hopefully some kind of financial place where they're thriving. But financial anxiety, it creates suffering. And so I really am driven to kind of help minimize that suffering.
So speaking of music and art, if you could meet anybody, any artist or musician alive out there in the world right now, spend a little time with them, who would it be?
Well, Bob Marley is no longer alive, as we know, but I would love to spend some time with Bob, picking his brain and just being in close proximity. Somebody who's alive today. Julian Casablancas, the lead singer of The Strokes. I'm always kind of an interesting figure, and I was a huge fan of The Strokes when they blew up. So I'd love to sit down and hear some words from that guy.
So, the one thing about being, a professional expert, so to speak, in the field that you're in, of coaching and helping people, is that there's always this fatal flaw. And a lot of people probably don't see it the way you do. But if you could look at most of your clients that come to you, what's the one thing that's usually overlooked yet somewhat easily fixable?
I think people aren't often clear of the circumstances they're in, like how bad or how good things are, and it really helps to have somebody to talk to be a sounding board. And I often think of myself, my role is to be a mirror and just to show, like, here's the amazing things that you're doing that you're semi-conscious of or not even conscious of, and here's how I'm seeing there's tremendous value in what you're doing, and then here are pathways to start to move towards setting goals and achieving those goals. People are so hard on themselves, and I've found rarely value the skills that they have and see how potentially they could be monetized.
So, speaking of being able to kind of look at yourself and to be, realistically reflective, I'm going to ask you this. Based on all of the years and the wisdom that you've gained in your life, let's say you have a dream tonight, you run into the 20-year-old version of yourself. You could give that version of you a piece of advice. What would that advice be?
If you start something, stick with it. And even if it takes years, like be a tree rooted in the ground. The breeze is going to come. The winds are going to come. You're going to get punches thrown, and you're going to feel them. And that's all right. If you're clear with your purpose and you're clear with the vision, and you're finding out what you're good at. I think as a younger person, I was bumped off course, and I thought that meant it was time to move on to something else. But what I've learned recently is that I want to stay rooted to this thing, and my mantra is just don't quit. So, of all of the things that you have accomplished and done in your life, what are you the proudest of? My marriage and my kids. I think without question, I love being a dad to an 8-year-old son and a 4-year-old daughter, and sometimes I'm a crazy soccer dad and I have to chill out, and sometimes my daughter was very willful. It's a challenge to be the right dad for her. I love them a lot. Professionally speaking, I know I'm at the best point in my life professionally. It's taken a long time and a lot of different forks in the road, but I've gotten to a place where I'm able to help people and make money and help people make money and do something that is important in my view, which is to help creative people. So right now is a good spot for me. So, Tony, everyone out there has a perception of you, an idea of who they think you are, your family, your friends, clients, colleagues, but ultimately you're the one in control. You live your life. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are? I love this question. I listened to quite a few of your other episodes, which are fantastic, and everybody should listen to. I think that the answer is really like a collection of all those other people. Like what do they think? I can tell you some of some of my core values and principles: integrity, authenticity, empathy, kindness, drive, work ethic, humility. But I don't always show up like that. So it's trying to live that version of myself and doing the best that I can. And when I fail to live up to my own expectations, it's about extending kindness to myself, and that's something I preach to every client is kindness and compassion directed towards self.
So, of all of the work that you've done in your life, what's been one of the best client responses, quote unquote fan letters, so to speak, that you've received back?
I'm fortunate to have received a lot of wonderful feedback on my LinkedIn page, and there's just several gems that stand out. I think one thing that people have said over and over is that my empathetic listening, deep listening, has helped in their journeys, and I love helping artists, puppeteers, writers, directors, designers, musicians. I think the deep listening and the without judgment, or an effort without judgment to try to support people.
So you've mentioned hip hop, and you've mentioned Marley. You've mentioned a kind of a collection of music here and there. And I'm curious, if you could have something be the soundtrack for you, who would it be? Who's the ultimate artist that you really dig, and that would be it?
Woo! God, I'd much rather have a mixtape. But if I got
we can do that.
Okay, so let's start it off with Bob Marley's "Steer It Up." We can go with The Strokes, "Hard to Explain." Talking Heads, "Naive Melody." Wes Montgomery's "Tequila." "Desire Lines" by Camera Obscura. There's a whole lot of I could go on and on.
Yeah, no, that's great. No, you really swath through all of that. That's wonderful. Man, Tony, this has been great. Thank you for opening up. And before we get out of the proverbial door here, I want everyone out there to be able to delve further into your work and who you are. Where's the best place for them to go to do that?
TonyLeonardCoaching.com is the website, and I hang out and spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. Like, somehow in this virtual space, I've found an office. And I show up, like, hey, what's going on? So Tony Leonard 1 is Tony Leonard Coaching is also on LinkedIn, and I hope people reach out and just say hello.
Beautiful, Tony, man. This has been great. Thank you for opening up. Thanks for your story and your time. I appreciate it. Best of luck with everything.
Thank you, Joe. Take care.
Thanks for tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, literature, business, spirituality, music, and more from around the globe. If you want to hear more interviews, visit the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino channel on YouTube. You can also find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.